The apparent unraveling of Ariana Grande is not a career crisis, it's a high-performing system asset. Over the last few years, the public has watched a series of visible fractures in her persona, from high-profile relationship collapses to sudden aesthetic shifts. The growing sense of personal volatility has become a fixture of the modern news cycle. In any traditional model of celebrity, this much instability is supposed to signal a decline. We are taught that professional power is the reward for personal coherence, that a star who appears to fragment is a star who is about to fade. But for Ariana Grande, the inverse is true. The paradox is that the more her personal life appears to fragment, the more her cultural relevance scales. We see a trajectory that looks like a descent but functions like a climb. While we wait for the collapse that history tells us follows this much chaos, the attention system simply refuses to let her drop. The uncomfortable implication is that in the modern economy of fame, stability is no longer the metric for success. Losing yourself doesn't end relevance anymore. If the unraveling is consumable, the system rewards it. When personal instability fails to trigger professional collapse, what are we actually looking at? The obvious explanation is that we tell ourselves she is simply resilient, or that her talent is so undeniable it overrides the headlines. We treat her success as a victory of the spirit over the drama, but that explanation treats her rise as an accident of willpower, assuming the system is merely a passive observer. What if her continued dominance isn't happening despite her personal fractures, but because of them? We need to move past the who of the relationship drama and look at the how of the attention system. We have to ask why celebrity fragility has become the ultimate fuel for engagement. To answer that, we have to look at the machinery that turns a personal crisis into a commercial asset, a logic where a perfect star is a finished product, but a fragile star is an ongoing high-yield project. In a world that runs on engagement, a person who is falling apart is much more valuable than a person who is whole. To understand why this feels so inevitable, we have to name the loop, call it the fragility engine. In the legacy media model, a star was a monument, static and untouchable. But in an algorithmic environment, the most valuable state a celebrity can occupy is narrative flux. This is the state where the public is constantly trying to solve the celebrity. When a star exists in a state of visible transition, they trigger a massive spike in engagement metrics. A stable star produces one headline, they released a song. A fragile star produces 1,000. What does this mean? Are they okay? Who is this about? To the modern attention system, a worried fan is the highest value user. Their concern is converted into obsessive labor, dissecting lyrics for Easter eggs, creating concern edits on TikTok, and defending the star against critics. Fragility creates a protective feedback loop. When the world attacks a star for being messy, the fans don't just listen to the music, they mobilize to save her. Every controversy becomes a call to action, forcing the audience to reinvest in the star's survival to prove their own loyalty. The fragility engine converts personal pain into systemic engagement. The system doesn't want her to get better in a way that makes her quiet. It wants her to keep struggling in a way that keeps us talking. The inevitability of this rise is anchored in how the system handles soft controversy. In the logic of the fragility engine, the more visible the unraveling, the more authentic the product feels. Throughout recent projects, the use of soft aesthetics, hushed tones, references to trauma, and a framework of survival acts as a liability insulation. In the old model, controversy triggered collapse. In the modern model, aestheticized fragility prevents it. By framing life as a series of things one has had to survive rather than a series of choices, the star becomes effectively uncancelable. You cannot hold someone accountable if the act of doing so feels like bullying a vulnerable person. This creates a risk asymmetry where the upside is purely algorithmic. The unraveling provides endless narrative fuel that makes every album feel like a necessary confession and every interview like a profound breakthrough. Meanwhile, the institutional cost remains effectively zero. As long as the unraveling is aestheticized, packaged as a beautiful sad pop song or a graceful, tearful interview, major brands and studios have no incentive to distance themselves. They aren't betting on her stability, they are betting on her visibility. By the time this stage is reached, fragility is priced into the brand. Recovery actually becomes a commercial risk. If the star became perfectly stable and private, the fragility engine would stop turning and engagement metrics would dry up. The system has converted instability into path dependency. She is being rewarded for her fractures, which makes the idea of becoming whole a career-threatening move. Zoom out. This is an incentive structure, not a story about a single person. We focus on Ariana Grande because she is the most refined operator within this framework, but she is actually just the most visible example of a new cultural law. Our attention economics have created a world where wholeness is a dead end and fracture is a growth strategy. Attention rewards the unraveling because a soul in transition is the ultimate content. It is infinitely searchable, deeply relatable, and perfectly designed for a media economy that thrives on affective politics. Institutions, the labels, the studios, the platforms reward this fragility because it preserves the most essential thing in the modern world, active engagement. They have no incentive to protect the star from the system because the system is the protection. As long as the audience is worried, the audience is buying. So the behavior persists not because the world is cruel, but because the world is hungry. The non-collapse we see is the sound of a machine that has learned how to monetize the friction of a human life. We have built a cultural reward structure that values the struggle more than the success, and then we wonder why our icons seem to be falling apart before us. When the price of relevance is the public consumption of your own instability, the system will never ask you to stop. We are left looking at the star who is rising while falling apart and realizing that in this era, the fractures are the only thing holding the career together. Losing yourself doesn't end relevance anymore. It makes you a permanent part of the engine.